All right. Well, hello, everybody. I want to welcome you guys back to Alive. It's been a long time since I've done an interview and recorded an episode. I mean, there have been so many things going on. And it's certainly not because I wasn't thinking about doing interviews, because I think about it all the time. But there was a season in my church where I really had to focus and prioritize the work of the church for a while. But I'm excited to be back and recording and sharing some exciting stories of God's involvement, God's presence, the things that God does in people's lives. And as a pastor, I interact with a lot of people, and I have the incredible privilege of being able to share in people's joys and celebrations. And I also share in people's struggles, in their suffering and their pain and their loss. And I think that if I would just say the world is full of suffering, most of you would probably agree with me that we can't get out of this life without having some type of suffering. And I've noticed that people respond differently to suffering. And some people accept it, some people fight it, some people resist it. There's a lot of different, some people get angry, some people get bitter. And I thought, as I was thinking about this, that we're on the backside and we just moved through Easter. It's in the rearview mirror, which is hard to believe. But one of the things that we always do at my church is we take time to not only celebrate, we celebrate Palm Sunday. It's amazing. All the kids are involved. It's really exciting. We celebrate Easter. We do our best to give God all the praise and remember the resurrection. But we do something else. We do not forget to remember the suffering of Jesus. And, before I was in a Methodist church, I didn't even really know what Holy Week was. We didn't do that. We only celebrated Easter. And so for me, it was a very new experience to kind of go back and remember what Jesus has done for us on the cross. And so remembering that Jesus suffered for us, literally suffered in his physical body, is an important thing for us to do. And I just want to read a scripture before we get into the interview today, because the person I'm interviewing has gone through some suffering. So it says in 1 Peter chapter 4, beginning in verse 1, I'm going to read the New Living Translation. It says, "So then, since Christ suffered physical pain, you must arm yourselves with the same attitude he had and be ready to suffer too. For if you have suffered physically for Christ, you have finished with sin. You won't spend the rest of your lives chasing your own desires, but you will be anxious to do the will of God. You've had enough in the past of the evil things that godless people enjoy, their immorality and lust, their feasting and drunkenness, and wild parties, and their terrible worship of idols." So here's kind of my takeaway from that. Suffering has a way of changing us. And if we are aware of Jesus's attitude and how he suffered and his willingness to give his life, and that if we have that kind of an attitude and are willing to seek to have that attitude, it will change our perspective about life and what is important in life. And that's why I'm bringing today's guest on the program, because I want her to share her story. And she's a person who, when she was in the middle of the trial, the hardest part of it, her face was still filled with joy and love. Even if she was crying, you could see the love of Christ in her. And the type of suffering that she endured is common. However, her response to suffering, well, that's not as common. So today what I want to do is welcome Jessica BENSCOTER to the program.
Thank you. Wow, what a nice welcome.
Oh, yay. Well, it's so true. I mean, every time the first time I believe that you told me, I think you came up to me at the end of a service, or there was a prayer time, and you told me what was going on, and I prayed for you, and your whole family was with you. And it was very moving for me to see you. But before we get into your story, I want the audience to know a little bit about you. So talk about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your family, whatever you want to say.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a mom of two. I have an 18-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old. I've been married to my husband 25 years this November. I'm what we call an instructional coach at an elementary school. So I support the teachers in their work and I support all the testing that happens at the school. Pretty much have a really loving family. My parents are a big part of my life still. My in-laws, I'm an extremely blessed person. I'm surrounded by lots of loving people in my life. So.
See, so everyone can already tell that you're like always talking about everyone else. So, were you raised in a Christian home?
Not really. My parents had a positive perspective on Christianity. My father was raised in a very strict Christian household, but my parents left the door open. I have an older brother and a younger brother for us to explore any spiritual life that we wanted to, but did encourage me to be a Christian and just the celebrations we had and the people we were surrounded by. In high school, I went off with a friend and went to church regularly with her. And that's really when I started to build on my faith. And then I went to college and kind of did the college life.
The college life in quotes,
Yes.
yes.
But then decided when my husband and I were talking about marriage that we really wanted to take our vows seriously, and that's what brought us back into church.
So speaking of your husband, that's a side note. Let me go back. That's really awesome that your parents encouraged you and that you had a friend in high school who brought you to church. And I think it's a really important time for young people. I mean, a lot of them just stop going to church, don't want to have anything to do with church. So that says a lot about your friend and you and your character. You and your husband is James.
Yes.
And so you met in college, right?
We actually met in high school.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I was a freshman. He was a senior against my parents', wishes at that time. They fell in love with him shortly after that. But yeah, so we kind of just started dating in high school and followed each other to college. And then decided in college that, we needed to get married. And his Christian life was very different than mine. He was raised in a very Christian household. And his parents had divorced, and his mom, through that divorce, the church wasn't as supportive as she needed them to be. Yeah. And that really set the tone for a negative relationship between Christianity and his family. And he's very protective of his mom, even still to this day. And at that moment, he decided that anything that would hurt his mom, that he didn't want to be a part of. And he said, he didn't believe in Jesus or any of that. He had no desire to want to be a Christian when we met and started dating. And
it's really interesting because I only know him now. Which is very different than
guy.
that.
Sure,
very different. Which is a testament to how things can change in someone's life. So how did it happen? So you guys, did you go to church even though, what happened? This isn't about him, but what was your journey as a couple as far as your relationship to God and how you started going to church?
We just started talking, and I worked on him even in our high school years, and I had him convinced, and we were on the same page with there was good and there was evil, and he was in agreement with that. And then in our college years, I kind of just started cultivating this, and positive feelings and just bringing up Christ here and there in conversation. And I then came to the point where I was like, I'm going to try going back to church. You're welcome to join me. And that kind of opened the door, and he came with me, and we were able to find a very kind of open church that was very welcoming.
Yeah.
And that made the difference because it was so counter what he had experienced.
Yeah.
And then he just fell in love, and just slowly over the years became a Christian.
It's so interesting. This is kind of a tangent, but
Mhm.
it's really relevant to today.
Mhm.
How important welcome and hospitality is
Mhm.
in a church. Like, we shouldn't be a clique.
I
It's,
agree. I
Jesus
agree.
wasn't like that.
Mm-mm.
Jesus is going to people's houses and eating with them
Mhm.
and developing really strong relationships with people and welcoming people. So
That's true.
it happened to be a United Methodist church, wasn't it?
It was a United
Yeah,
Methodist
which is
Church, yeah.
really cool.
Mhm.
I mean, and so you guys started there. You started raising
Mhm.
your family there,
We did,
and
yeah.
then you went to another United
Mhm.
Methodist. Then you ended up coming here to our
Mhm.
church,
Yep.
um, and so you'd been a church goer.
Mhm.
You'd been a Christian, both of you now,
Mhm.
for many years, and then the end of 2021.
Yes.
Something
Mhm.
started, you had something that happened, and you were here
Yeah.
at the time,
I
members of
was.
this church.
Yeah, we
Okay.
were members. We actually came here for our children because it was really important that our children were connected in their Christianity before they left for life after high school.
Yes.
And our daughter, our eldest, fell in love with first here,
Oh,
and that's
awesome.
what brought us here. So
I didn't know that. So how old was she at the time?
15, 16.
Okay. And
Mhm.
she's off in college now,
She's
doing great.
now, yeah, she's doing great. We miss her terribly, but she's
Oh,
doing really
I
well.
miss her too. I can't imagine how you feel. So you went and you had a scan or mammogram, right?
I did in a December of 2021. And I've had plenty before. And even my doctor had done a physical exam in late November and thought everything was fine, nothing to worry about.
Wow.
So in December, I went for my mammogram. In January, I received a card in the mail asking for me to return for a follow-up ultrasound, which I did in February. And the doctor came right out and said, you need to go get this tested. So I went and had a biopsy done immediately, and it was found to be cancerous. So right away we went to action and had tests done and had to start chemotherapy in March of that year. And I did chemotherapy till September and I decided for a complete mastectomy because from that point, like from the moment I was told of even before, I remember getting the card and praying and saying, you know what, God, if I have to do this, then can we just do it at a different time? Because I wasn't like jiving with God's
Of
timeline.
course. I mean, what is
I
the
wanted
right
to
time for
control
that?
a little, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because my children being at home was the big
course.
thing. I didn't want them to witness the suffering and the illness that comes with a cancer diagnosis. But God has a plan, and we had to go with it because
Well,
that was it.
and just to kind of back up for a
Mhm.
minute, people may think, well, it was pretty radical that you had a double mastectomy. However, first of all, you have a family history, right?
I do. My mom was diagnosed before age 50.
Okay.
So,
And this is before, obviously, before you were 50.
yeah. Hmm.
So was it close to the age of your mother?
It was 4 years before hers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were younger.
Hmm.
And then, what was the other thing? I had a question and it just left my mind about the double mastectomy. Had you ever done what's the test that
The
you can-
BRCA
Yeah,
testing.
had you done that?
My mom had, and she was BRCA negative, so I didn't qualify for testing since she was the living relative that had the breast
No
cancer.
kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I didn't have somebody else in my family line. So
Okay.
they said, no, I didn't qualify. And I was under the care of a breast specialist for many years
Wow.
prior to this. And they had released me 2 years prior saying that my scans were all stable and that they didn't feel like there was anything suspicious. And so this felt like it really came out of nowhere for us.
So you said, okay, so this came out, it would seem like it would come out of nowhere. And then you have your girls. You're going to have to think about them in the
Yeah.
future. I mean, I'm sure you're already talking about all of
Absolutely,
that.
yeah. We've already gotten
Yeah.
into the conversation with the doctors. To
Yes,
make sure.
good. And then how did your mother and what she went through affect you? Like, how old were you at the time?
I was away at college. I actually had just graduated from college. It was the first day of my teaching career that I got the
Wow.
phone call driving into work. And I remember when I finally got home that day, it was a very long day. I just sat on my bathroom floor, cried, and prayed and prayed and prayed, and that was all I could do.
Mhm.
But not being at home made it so it wasn't really real
Yeah.
until the surgeries and seeing my mom on the weekends I would go home, and so that, yeah, it was different, and I think that's why I asked God to
Mhm.
just wait until my girls were out of the house,
Right.
because
Mhm.
I had that experience with my mom, and she's still, praise God, with us today. And yeah, so I didn't want them to see,
To
because
see
the
it.
suffering, my mom would hide in her room when I'd come home on the
Yeah.
weekends. Yeah.
So
So,
you kind of get that naturally where you're like,
yeah.
and then we were talking about that
Hmm.
before we started recording about suffering and how
Hmm.
that there is this inclination of,
Yeah.
we obviously we don't like to suffer.
Hmm.
And then as mothers, the
It's so
last thing
different.
we want is for our children to
It's
suffer.
so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would like
Yes.
sacrifice
If I
your
could,
life for them, and protect them.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever I could do to take that pain away. Because that was the hardest part, was
Yeah.
breaking the news to my girls. The
Yeah.
hardest part wasn't hearing the news,
Yeah.
because I had already kind of in my mind had anticipated it, just because my mom had had it.
Right.
But to have it so young and to have children living at home, that was hard, because
Hmm.
it rocks their world, their stability, their
Oh, yeah.
their understanding of what's going to happen, and their spiritual
That's
being.
right.
It just really did change things for them. So,
Well, since we're talking about that, I mean, I
hmm
know we're going to get into a little bit more, but the spiritual side of things, um, your children were young
hmm
when it first happened. The
yeah.
process that you've gone through is a 2.5
hmm
or so years.
Yeah.
How did it affect them?
They are solid Christians from it, and they've told me, and they've posted things. Social media is a big thing for kids, but on my diagnosis day, my 18-year-old posts like a reminder, and you can see through
Mm.
the pictures and everything that her faith in God has completely done a 360, because she kind of just went to church because mommy and daddy wanted
Of
her to
course.
go to church, but then she decided to be baptized, and
Yes, that was
with
awesome.
yeah, like without us having to say, do you want to do this? And they've both told me that a big part of their spiritual growth was because they saw that I did not, that God did not create my cancer.
Yeah.
God was there when we were told that it was something we had to fight. And He gave us the tools through the people that loved us, through the church that supported us, through His word to
Hmm.
fight it. And so they were witness to that journey and that change in myself, even my parents and my husband,
Mm.
about how we all leaned on our faith when everything else is gone and you can't feel the ground underneath your feet.
That's right.
Your faith is there for you. God is there for you. So,
Well, that's beautiful because that's why I said in the beginning, like how we handle
mhm,
suffering. People, not everyone handles it like that because you can grow bitter
mhm.
and angry. And I mean, you've been through a lot. So,
Yeah.
so speaking of that, you had, um, we don't have to go into the details of everything that happened, but you had bad news. You would get through it, and things seem to be going well, and you're
Yeah.
going up, and then you get
Bad
bad news, and then
news.
you're
It's
like
like, what
maybe
is
a little
going
bit of
on?
good, and then you're bad. Like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that? Like, did you ever get discouraged?
Yeah, there were moments of discouragement, but it was interesting because anytime I was feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't do this, I can't do this next treatment, I can't do this next surgery, there was just people put in my path that were just kind of like, you can do this, you can. And the people from just my work environment that just came out
Yeah.
and said, I'm a survivor, I'm praying for you. We did like this meal train, just the amount of support. Every time I needed something, it was right there. And it's like, I can't let all these people down. There's all these people pulling for us and my family. And I need to be an example, and I need to be strong. and I'm going to get through this. So yeah, it was just like anytime I needed something, it just appeared, it just happened. I didn't have to think about it. All I had to do was just keep powering on and take it one day at a time. And then that's how I got through it.
I think that the waiting and the uncertainty, that would have been really, really difficult for me.
Yes.
You know,
and I'm a control freak. Like, I really am. Like, everything, like each of my babies, like, I want to be, it happened. Like, I was, and that perspective of not realizing how blessed I was.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I really did, in my eyes, had the perfect life, And so, yeah, not having control, that's huge. Because now, today, I sit here and I think I really don't have control. I can make choices and I can decide things in the moment, but ultimately,
no, I say that. I say that all the time. It's like, I think I'm in control, but then when I really ponder it, I know I have zero control over anything.
Yeah, that's the
I
reality.
mean, we don't even know about the next breath that we take.
Exactly.
So, yeah, what do they say? The only thing sure or that's going to happen is change.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's true.
This is maybe a weird thing to say, but so your physical body was being affected dramatically by my sister had cancer.
Okay.
And that's my familiarity. My father-in-law did too.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the damage that it can do to a person's body.
Yes.
And for me, that would be so hard because I love to be outdoors. I love to be hiking. I love to, How did it affect your mindset? You're kind of an outdoor person, aren't you?
I am. I'm very active.
Yeah.
Always on the go. And you know what? I have to say, I worked full time the entire time.
Oh my goodness.
I did my treatments on Fridays so I could just leave work and go to treatment. It was every 3 weeks I had treatments, and for about 20 months. And then I had a full month of radiation every weekday, 25 treatments for a month.
Oh.
So I did that before or after work. But that kind of schedule of work was what I needed. And God put me in a place in which I had the support of my administration that worked with me and allowed my schedule to fluctuate as far as me coming in early and so on. And and even now that's changed, right? Like, so January I have new administration. Like, so everything, God's timeline there's always a reason for the way things work out.
Yes.
And I think he was preparing me before this had ever happened, because all of a sudden, like 3 months before we had started eating healthy, I'd started exercising every day. I just wanted to be healthier.
Yes.
So when I had to start chemo, my body was already stronger than it was. And then I just kept it going. I kept exercising. I kept eating healthy and praying. Every morning I'd wake up and I'd sit and I'd have my time. And I never did that before. And even when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I'd go to my porch and I'd sit there and I'd read the Bible and I'd just spend time with Jesus. And I would just get that, like, I just feel comfortable and like I could tackle anything that came my way. And I never had felt that before. So yeah, this experience had allowed me to be opened to that.
See, I love that. I mean, I can attest to that same thing in different things at times in my life when I was really stressed out, suffering, all these things. And what I hear you saying is you were leaning into God. You were desperately clinging. You were, whatever. His presence was like with you the whole time. What's funny is we're in the Bible study right now. I was just telling you the story about, when Peter in Acts, when Peter said, get up. I don't have silver or gold, but get up, stand up and walk. But they were going to prayer, and it was at 3 p.m., and I asked the class the other night, I said, does anybody wake up at 3 a.m.? And if you wake up at 3 a.m., what do you do?
Right.
And and I was looking at my notes, and I had a note in here where you said
pray.
about 3 a.m. I'm like, what is it about 3?
Yes.
But that's what you did. And that's what I've done too. Like if you wake up at 3 a.m., you've got something on your mind or whatever, get up, pray, read the Bible. and
so much
just
better.
sit with,
Yeah,
yes.
you
Then you're
do. It
like,
changes everything.
it's like
Yeah.
you're starving to death and you don't realize
Yes.
it. Starving spiritually, and then you open up the word or you talk to God, and then all of a sudden you're filled up and you have peace.
Yes, 100%.
It's crazy.
And it's something like I felt like prayer was something that I could do out of nothing. Like
Yes.
I didn't have control of many things, but I could pray and I could have conversations with God
Yeah.
and I could eat healthy because now I understand the blessing of my body
Yes.
and how God gave me this body and how he gave me a strong body to overcome anything that comes my way.
So I want to ask, I'm going to write this down because I'm super interested in what you're talking about with healthy eating because my sister, when she was, I believe she was stage 4 when she realized that she had it. And there was a period of time and she went through a lot. But when they said there's nothing else we can do, she went to like extreme healthy eating and, obviously no sugar and all that stuff. And
Yes.
I've thought a lot about it and I have my reservations about kind of some modern medicine kind of things.
Sure.
Because I'm not the expert, so I want to hear from you. But it's your immune system. So your cancer, if your immune system is not healthy, then cancer has more power, is how I understand it. So when you eat well, and you're putting nutrients into your body that can fight, which is kind of what you're saying.
Correct.
So talk to me. What do you do now? How did your eating habits change?
Oh, yeah. They changed quite a bit. I actually, again, God put a person in my path. One of the girls on my daughter's dance team, her mom's a nutritionist, and she specializes in
Oh, look at that.
yeah, how nutrition can support you through therapies and so
See,
on.
that's so good.
So right away, I got connected with her and started a plan. She went through my diet and set me up and then educated me on what is good eating and what is not and what things to look at in my ingredients
Yes.
to avoid. So you want to kind of look at the ingredients are super important because we sneak all sorts of stuff in our food and just don't know.
Oh, yeah.
You think you're eating healthy and you're not.
Yep.
So cancer also will go after if you have damaged cells. That's where it
Okay.
also finds a doorway into growing. So you want to kind of clean your body of free radicals and have that clean eating. But yeah, if you have that really strong immune system, there's a theory that everybody might have cancer cells in their body.
I've heard that.
And yeah, so the healthy bodies will know to say, oh, that's a bad cell. I'm not going to allow it to grow. And then when you have damage in your cells, it allows those unhealthy cancer cells to take hold and start growing. So that's one of the theories. But every one of the doctors I spoke to encouraged healthy eating just because you need all the vitamins and nutrition that you get from your leafy greens and vegetables and fruits in order to kind of allow those new cells to grow and regenerate, and you want those healthy cells to be able to do their job.
So do you eat all organic?
I do.
Yeah.
I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of my time is spent on grocery shopping, planning my meals for the week, and making sure everything is
I mean,
clean.
if you're getting like organic vegetables, you have to go more frequently too.
You do. Yeah, because they don't last.
Yeah.
And you respect food a whole level different because you're paying more for it and
Yes.
you're being more kind of strategic
Yeah.
in what you're purchasing. So yeah, I definitely have a deeper respect for the importance of food in our lives. And every time I eat, it's like, what's the purpose of me putting this in my body?
Exactly.
It's to do this, and this.
Exactly. Instead of just like gorging yourself,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm speaking for myself there.
Well, yeah. I have a cheat day once a week where I can just
Do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Do you eat meat?
I do. I
Okay.
still do eat meat, but it's grass-fed, grass-finished.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so, like, do you eat like more chicken and fish rather than red meat, or how?
It's a mixture.
Okay.
And, something my nutritionist told me was when you go out to eat something you don't eat at home. So you
Yeah.
add that variety into your diet.
like
So, everybody complains when I cook fish at home. I'll do it once or twice a week, but
Yeah.
that's my go-to when I go out to eat because nobody can complain about me preparing it. So.
No, but I mean, I know we didn't even talk about this. This is kind of but I think it's really important because I've noticed some people, I mean, I've been talking about it. I talk about it a lot because, I mean, I know I don't eat perfectly, but I do only get like organic vegetables and fruit. And like, I don't get any kind of chicken that's like,
with antibiotics.
yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, I know, and there's so many pesticides on all of the foods, and and color and all that stuff. And like, I read the ingredients on the box, and there's like all these extra things, and you're like, why am I putting that into my body?
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I think if we can prevent,
I agree. I think that's key.
yeah,
And my husband is convinced part of the issue in our country is the food we eat. Just
Totally.
by how many cases we're hearing of cancer.
It's
the
more
rise of
and
cancer.
more. I was thinking the
Yes.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's like more and younger. And
Yeah.
all ages of people. And I'm like, what could it be?
Yep.
It has to be our water,
think it
our
is.
food,
agree.
all the things we're taking
Yep.
in. I mean, it could even be like what we're putting on our skin.
Absolutely. Yeah, the products we're using.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has said when I'm cooking now, he's like, this tastes like what I had when I was a kid, especially eggs.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I think our food has just been changed and modified, and there were some reasons, like our population grew, and they had to be creative. But but then there's products in this country that we're actually shipping out. We're shipping out some of our best foods because there are countries in Europe that will not accept all the over-processed foods.
We send it out because they don't.
Right,
I
they won't
can't.
accept it. Yes.
I can't. I grew up with a really big garden
Okay.
in my home. I mean, when I was a kid, and I mean everything.
Same.
It's what you did.
Yeah, we
You're
did,
like,
yeah. We had
I mean,
tomatoes, the whole
and my
damn-
mom would freeze it or can it.
Yep.
And then that's what we would have through the winter. And I mean, I think about it now. She's like, well, go pick a couple ears of corn, get some beans while you're out there, and grab a zucchini. And
There
you're
you
like,
go.
okay. And there's a carrot on the way.
Right.
And it tasted, and tomatoes.
It tasted so different.
Oh, they were so good. And now you're like,
apples and-
this
yeah.
is awful. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm really, really glad that we're talking about it. It's something that I'm really interested in. Shauna and I talk about it a lot.
That'd be great.
And I just think that I'm glad that you were already
On it.
starting down that path.
And with my cancer, I triple positive. So estrogen, it was an estrogen positive, progesterone, and HER2 positive cancer. So those were the things that allowed it to grow. And in our foods, we eat foods that can increase estrogen in the body. So anything with soybean oil, which is a very highly processed oil, but it also increases your estrogenic responses. So I had to cut all that out of my diet.
Wow. So soy, what else?
An increased like body fat actually holds estrogen in it.
Well, I better
So-
lose some weight. I need to lose about
so
20 pounds.
It's so crummy. It's like, are you kidding me?
Come
One
on,
more
I'm getting
thing.
older now.
One
Can't
more
I get
thing.
fat?
Yeah. So just all of that, and I opted to have a complete hysterectomy to get rid of
wow.
any estrogen in my body. So
How many
reducing.
surgeries did you have throughout this process?
5 total.
They were pretty major.
They were big ones. Yeah. And it was just like, okay. And every surgery, though, I have to say, like, went seamless. Everybody took such great care. You hear horror stories. I don't have one bad story to say. And I went to multiple different hospitals for my treatments.
Wow.
Everybody took such great care of me, and the doctors were top notch, really kind, and God just, I would heal right away, and I was right back at.
Yeah, I was like amazed. I remember seeing you walk in going, wait, I was just like at the hospital with you. What are you doing here?
Yeah. Even the nurses were
amazing.
like, what are you doing walking you're not supposed to be up yet, And I'm like, and a nurse came up to me and she's like, you are glowing. And I said, yes. I have the power of God in me. She's like, 100%, gave me a huge hug. And she's like, I
Yes.
wish all our patients could do this,
So true. Well, you also said, I remember you saying that you prayed, didn't you, for all the doctors? And
Every time we prayed. Yeah. Every time we would just pray and we just lifted up every worry in a prayer and just
That's
let
fantastic.
it go. You got to let it go. So
I mean, so talk, maybe share like some of you talked about the presence of God. You talked about, I mean, getting up in the morning and praying and God's presence being with you. What are some of the did you have specific miracles that happened?
I did. I had several things happen. One of my chemotherapies, I got super sick from, and that happens. And I came home, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I was in bed all weekend sick and just could not function. And I had a big day on Monday, and I really had to get back to work.
Oh my gosh.
I have a lot of people counting on me, so I got to get back to work. And so I decided, okay, Sunday morning, I turned on church. I watched live.
Yes.
I said, I'm just going to, enough of this nonsense of feeling sick and sorry for myself. I'm just going to watch church, and I'm going to sing, and I'm going to just enjoy God's presence right now. And the service had stopped, and boy, like a light switch, I got out of bed. I ate some toast and a banana. I was good. I went back to work the next day, just fine as could be. Could not keep a lick of food down until I'm just going to focus my energy somewhere else on God.
And some would say, well, when you have a positive attitude, and I don't mean to minimize.
But
mm-hmm. A positive attitude is not going to get you from being totally sick.
That's right. To healed in 30 minutes.
Yes.
There's
no way.
Right before the service, I was in the bathroom sick.
Wow.
So, and I believe my positive attitude is powered by my spirit.
Totally agree.
So
yes.
that's where that's coming from.
Yes.
And then there was another time after my very first treatment, I was on the floor of my bathroom, same situation, and I sat on the floor and I just prayed and just got up. I was fine. It was just weird, right?
Where it's not
normal. You can feel it in your body.
Yes.
And it's like, yes. And it's like every time I prayed about something, like I had Charlie horses or anything, it would just alleviate itself. And I didn't need, they prescribe all sorts of medicines, doctors, because they want to help curb any side effects.
Yeah.
Didn't need them. I only used Tylenol after I had a complete reconstruction surgery, and they gave you all this stuff. I just used Tylenol. I didn't need it because I had the power of prayer. I had my spirit in check. I had my love and support all around me.
Yeah.
And all that love and support was from God, 100%. He put it all in there. The one big miracle for me and for my family was before my big reconstructive surgery. I came to church the Saturday before, and it was Communion Sunday or Saturday, because I go to
Saturday night.
I go to Saturdays, and I was sitting there praying, and I always do after I take communion. And in my prayer, I said to God, I'm not making this about me. You have heard me pray about this surgery enough. Yeah. I'm going to think about other people. And in the middle of that prayer, like a complete interruption, and I heard God say, Jessica, you're fine. I've got you. You're okay. Everything's going to be just fine. And that was it. Like, I was like, we're good. Oh. I went into that surgery. Everybody's like, why are you so happy? I'm like, because I'm good. Everything's going to go great. And it sure did. Like, I was supposed to have an 8-month recovery, and I was back at work in 3.5.
I'm telling you, it's really, really helpful to hear you talking about this. And I'm thinking, of course, about my conversation in my Bible studies, because sometimes God completely heals, like instantly. Yes. I've seen it happen,
He can do that.
And sometimes he doesn't.
That's true.
And the healing for you was it what you expect? I mean, you wanted.
I did. I wanted to just take it. Take it. But now that I've gone through this 2-year journey, I understand. Like, even if it would have just been like, let's just do a lumpectomy and move on, it still would not have resonated with me the way it has with the diet change, the exercising, the spiritual growth of my children, my husband, my parents. Yeah. None of that. The understanding what's most important in life, and every day Every day is a gift from God. Every day I have a goal. I have to work towards whatever God wants me to do that day.
That's right.
And so it definitely has changed our perspective. And the biggest gift is that it's changed it in my children.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gift, right? Because I know
Yes.
that everybody's day is going to come.
That's
It's
right.
just reality, being
Exactly.
human, living and breathing. But I know that on the other side of that, my babies are going to be with me. My husband's going to be with me. My parents,
Yes.
like all my loved ones are going to be with me. And that's
That's right.
forever.
And unfortunately, I'm going to be with you. And
Yes, no, that's awesome. And all the
you can't
amazing
get rid of me.
people. I can't tell you the number of people that walked into my office and would just pray at work. Like people that I didn't know were Christian. And so all of those amazing people, and hopefully others that don't know yet, right?
That's right.
They will be there too. So
I just think that your attitude, and not like you said, it's the spirit of the living God. I remember talking to you about that.
yeah.
And we were sharing whatever whenever we were praying at one time that the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is in you.
Absolutely.
And so when you are
100%.
suffering in that way, and then you're not angry, you're not bitter, you may be confused, you may be struggling,
Yeah.
but the same spirit,
Exactly.
the spirit of the living God is in the spirit of the resurrected Christ, who overcame death and overcame the grave, is in you, and you can get through anything.
Absolutely.
And before we started recording, we were talking about that we seem to be in a culture that is averse to suffering. Not that we should seek it out,
Right. Right.
but we take medications
We sure do.
so that we don't feel any pain. We avoid circumstances that are going to cause us anxiety. I mean, and I've been to a lot of different countries that experience this kind of stuff all the time, and they don't have the medicine. They don't have.
Right.
I don't know. It just seems like we're just
Yeah.
and how we try to hide from suffering. I don't know. How do you?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. It's just like there's so many indicators in our society in which we try to get away
Yeah.
from not feeling pain and not, my generation always says every kid gets a trophy, that kind of
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
like that there's
Yeah.
suffering too. And when you lose a game,
You're right.
And so, yeah, of course, it's human nature to avoid it, but then you have to be kind of realistic and say, how am I going to face it? Because
Right.
you're going to have to face it. That's just the reality. Is
Yeah.
that it's going to come one
It's
way or
going to
another.
come.
So how are you going to be prepared, right?
right.
How are you going to take it on? And that was kind of like my attitude from the get-go. It's like, bring it. Like, let's go.
Let's do it.
Bring me your toughest treatment. What do we need to do? Let's get this going.
You
We got
said
this.
something here. Actually, here it is. When we were talking before, I can do hard things. I have God on my side.
That's 100%.
I
I say that every morning.
love
when
that.
there's a big test, because I have to organize all this testing at work. I say that in my head because we just had one Tuesday. I'm like, I can do hard things. God has created me to be able to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I've got
I
this.
think that's great to say that. I mean, it's just like the scripture. I can do all things through Christ who gives me the strength.
100%.
And we're pretty resilient. We can do hard things, especially because God is on our side.
You sure can.
So I just got word from someone a couple of days ago that they've been diagnosed with breast cancer. breast cancer.
sorry.
What would you say to someone who just got a diagnosis?
Take it one day at a time, and whatever feelings you're gonna feel, just feel them. It's okay. And it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to be sad, and it's gonna get better. It will get better, but you just don't know what path lies ahead.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions, and don't be embarrassed by questions. Ask as many as you need to in order to get to the answers that you need to give you some peace. But always remember that God has got your back, because he's the same God yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He's the same God that healed, gave people that were
He is.
blind sight, and he'll do it. He'll do it. You got to be patient. That's the toughest part.
Yeah, the
Is you have to
waiting.
wait it out. you know,
That's a
yeah.
curse word. Waiting.
I know it's so hard. It's so hard because you don't know when the end is, right? Like the timeline
That's
for this
right.
journey is going to conclude. And yeah, when you're told after you've finished everything and they find a new cancer, which happened to me, it's like, are you kidding me? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? I thought we were done, But it's okay. It's okay.
Back in the furnace
You
again.
get back in it and you get going again, and yeah. So, but take some time to process your feelings. I think is really important.
And it's okay to, like you said, it's okay to have those feelings.
Absolutely.
I think the important thing is giving those all to God too. I mean, feelings are a part of being human.
Absolutely.
And He's pretty big.
Yes.
He can handle whatever feelings we have.
That's so true.
So I was trying to think is there anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Anything's on
Anything on the top of my head. Wow, I never get this time. I'm normally the person in the background that,
I know. And then we just put you right up here.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah, just that, just don't give up, no matter what comes your way. And I know it's nice, it's easy for me to say it's going to be okay, but it will be. It'll work itself out no matter what it's supposed to be, it's going to be.
That's right.
You got to kind of, sometimes you just got to go along for the ride and give yourself lots of grace, because that was something I did not allow. And I blamed myself, like maybe I should have been healthier. Maybe I should have had my mammogram earlier. Maybe, no, don't do that. That gets you nowhere, and it's not what God wants us to do.
Did you think at any point that suffering was from God, or suffering was a punishment maybe for something?
I was very thankful that I never felt like God did that to me.
Yeah.
I know that many people do, and I understand and I respect that. But I wouldn't let myself go there, because I did feel deep down inside that wasn't from Him. I did feel like He could heal me, and I was a little frustrated that He didn't want to right away. But yeah.
But you had encounters. That's what we, so healing, you didn't receive the physical healing you wanted. You still went through a lot of issues,
crazy.
but you received something like a kind of like a diamond in the rough, or that pearl, because you learned how to communicate with the Lord, and He revealed Himself, literally spoke to you.
Yeah, that was just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because you hear people, right, that have had that
Oh, yeah.
experience, and you're like, that's not going to happen to me. Like I would used to say, I'm not special enough.
Yeah.
Right, well, I'm just this little person. Like, why would He spend any of that attention on me? But again, I'm boxing God's power.
Absolutely.
And I can't imagine, as a human being, I can't wrap my mind around how powerful He is and what He's capable of doing, although I try to.
Yeah.
But yeah, He's just...
So maybe we kind of touched on this, but this is my final question, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
How has your view of God and your understanding of God changed? Has it changed in this process?
Yeah, because I would, Sundays were church days, and everything had a place, right? And God was there when I sat and prayed, and we were good to go. But now it's like God is in every bitty detail. He's in that table. He's everywhere and in everything and everybody. And I now see people differently. I see that we're all spiritual beings, and when I'm passing somebody on the road, it's like that's another spirit of a son or daughter of God. That's their spirit is alive in them, So that's the way I see people. It's given me a lot more patience and understanding when I'm dealing with, sometimes there's difficult people in the world. It's just, but they're all everybody's dealing with their own stuff.
Absolutely, they are.
But at the root of it, we are all these beautiful spirits that God has intentionally created and put on this earth.
Right.
And so we need to love that other spirit and that other person.
Yeah.
So.
And as much as God loves you, I mean that's a
100%.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
because if I want to have God's grace, then I need to understand that everybody else has access
Yeah.
to that grace.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
And that can be a tough pill for
That's
people
really
to
hard.
swallow, but you
Yeah.
know, it is the truth.
it is
Because
yeah.
the Bible says that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish. So
Right.
every person,
person, yep.
everyone means everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you
for coming on and sharing your story. I mean, it's going to inspire people.
I hope so.
And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing how things go in the future. I
you.
mean, you look great.
Thank you.
You know, maybe we can talk more about food sometime. and
Okay, I'd
share
love
some
to.
food and recipes and,
All right,
and
that'd
help
be
me
great.
personally. I need some help,
Aw,
but
more
but
than
thank you,
happy.
and
Thank
and I
you.
just want to thank everybody who's been watching on a live. I mean, like I said, I'm starting back up. I've got some more interviews on the way, so thank you for spending the time, and may God bless you guys.